Hey, I know a lot of you guys have a lot of extra time now, a lot of extra time at home, and I thought maybe some of you might want to learn to juggle. And so I just thought I'd do a little short video, how to juggle three balls in a normal pattern, a normal cascade pattern in five, each step comparatively easy. If you get the first step, going on to the second step, not too bad. Second to third, third to fourth. So it's kind of a painless way to learn to juggle, and probably in about 2 hours of practice, something like that, you'll be able to do some very basic juggling. So just a couple things to talk about before we get started on the five steps. One is you probably don't have balls that are specifically made for juggling. Like these are made by Dubé, a company in New York. They make great balls for juggling, great all kinds of stuff for juggling. But fruit actually works pretty well if you have oranges or clementines, something like that. They've got a nice weight to them. Apples are okay, maybe a little bit light. If you have lacrosse balls work well, although they bounce all over the place when you drop them. Tennis balls work pretty well. They're a little bit light, but something like that, you can make your own, but that would take more time to make your own than it would to learn to juggle. So at any rate, a couple of other things to talk about before we get started. One is where you're juggling. You just want to make sure that, balls sometimes are going to go crazy places. So just make sure there's not anything that's could break around you. It also helps if you can juggle like against, say, a couch or against a bed, even better, because then when you drop the balls, you don't have that far, you don't have to go all the way down to the ground every time, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but after you've picked up about 100 or 200 dropped balls, you'll start to feel that in your hamstrings the next day at least, or maybe that's a good workout for your hamstrings too, so you might want that. So at any rate, what the goal here is to get you to do is just to do a 3-ball cascade. So what I would like you to do before we get started on the easy step, on step 1, is just take a look at what it looks like done at the easiest height. And the easiest height is probably, for most of you, it's going to be right around the top of your head. If you juggle lower than that, you have to have faster reaction time with your hands. If you juggle higher, your throws have to be a lot more accurate. So that's a nice place, a nice height. And if you just look at one ball, because we're going to be starting with one ball, and what I want you to do is look at the path that one ball takes. So just to make it easy, I've got 1 ball silver, 2 balls red. Follow the silver ball, both the path of the ball itself, and then also look at my hands. Look at what my hand is doing to enable the ball to do basically a figure 8 kind of shape. So I think that'll be clear when you see it. So just follow the silver ball, looking both at the path of the ball and then also looking at what my hands are doing. And if you notice the height, I'm going right about at the top of my head, and my hands aren't moving all that fast, right, to do this. I'm waiting till the ball hits the top to throw the next ball. If I were to go smaller, my hands are having to move a lot faster. If I juggle higher, then my throws have to be done a lot more accurately. Another thing to notice is that I'm not looking down at my catches at all. I'm keeping my focus up right at where I'm throwing. So the accuracy of the throw is what's important. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started with just 1 ball. And the first thing is the tendency when you're throwing 1 ball from one hand to the other is to throw it this way over the top. And that's not, you can juggle that way. I could show you that for a second. You can juggle with an outside circle like this, but this is actually, it may look as easy, but it's actually quite a lot harder to juggle that way. So you want to juggle with an inside throw, an inside scoop. So if I'm throwing from one hand to the other, I'm going to go here, I'm going to scoop, throw it up to the point, catch it. Throw, catch. Throw, catch. If I'm throwing with one hand, I'm thinking of going up to a point on the opposite side, up to that point, and so not in the middle. I'm not throwing up to the middle. I'm throwing up to the sides. 2 points. I'm thinking 2 points, and they're about right there. I know the camera's tilted a little bit up, but they're actually right about at the top of my head, maybe a little bit higher. So if you look at that throw again, throw up to the point with an under, with a scoop, right? I'm exaggerating the scoop a little bit, but I want that way. I don't want to go that way over the top. That way over the top. Don't throw that way. Throw from underneath, catch. From underneath, catch. When you have a feel for doing that, just one throw at a time. Throw, catch. Throw, catch. Try to keep the ball moving. So that was the first step. The first step is just to get the feeling of throwing and catching. Throwing and catching. The most common, before we go to step 2, the most common mistakes to make on step 1 probably is going to be throwing too close to the center, right, rather than to those 2 separate points. And another common mistake is to catch the ball too high. And that's going to be a mistake that'll probably continue. So if you can kind of address, as you go into the higher steps, so if you can address it now, it's going to be a lot easier to learn to juggle in the next steps. So in other words, what I mean is I don't want to catch it. That's the tendency, is to catch it high. I want to wait for it to come down. It's basically the ball's not going just into my hand. I am catching it, but I'm not thinking of catching it, going up to catch it. So I'm going to throw, catch. The second step, and the rhythm is really important here, but your second step is just to keep the ball going. So you're going from the catch, you're going into the next throw. So I'm going to go up, catch, and I'm not rushing. I'm waiting for the ball to come back down, and the ball is more or less taking a figure 8 shape, but I'm thinking of those 2 points, right? I'm thinking of throwing to those 2 points, and I'm looking at those points. Don't look down at your hands catching. Wait for the ball. So it may help if you just feel rhythm, the rhythm of what you're doing. And you're trying to keep that rhythm, even. Right, and that'll really make a big difference. And obviously, you're going to want to pause this video or just stop it totally. Practice a step until you get that step. Feel like you've got that step maybe 80% mastered, something like that, somewhere around 80%, where you feel like, okay, I'm pretty solid with that step. So that's step 2. And it might seem like, oh, this is nothing, but just to get this smoothness of the throw, it'll help you, because when you rush and go to the next step too quickly, you're going to have too many problems with what you're doing to be able to isolate them and fix them. So if you can fix the most common problems, most common juggling problems early on, just makes it so much easier when you go to the next step. You may find, and I don't think this is going to be a problem for this, but you may find that you have a problem throwing out, where you're having to go out. So that's also possible. And when you start to have the higher steps of learning to juggle, you'll find that that's a very common problem, is throwing out. But I don't think at this step that'll be a problem. So if you just look at me in profile, and I'm really just trying to juggle in a plane. I'm really just trying to throw the ball up and catch it in a plane. If I go out, that's going to make juggling very difficult as we go along. So one more time, I think the most important thing at this stage to remember is those 2 points, those 2 separate points that you're throwing, right? One hand's throwing up to this point, the other hand's throwing up to this point, to make sure you're scooping and throwing, so the ball is going on an inside arc as you do it, and to not go up and try to catch the ball, but to let the ball come down to the level, so your hands are basically staying at waist level, and except of course when you're actually releasing the throw, but as you're catching. And then also that rhythm, just to get that rhythm. So if you watch one more time, listen to the rhythm, and then when you're doing it, try to match that rhythm. And so you want that rhythm to be as even as possible. And I know it may seem like I'm spending an awfully long amount of time on something that's very simple, But if you spend a longer amount of time at these earlier stages, I think you're going to end up being able to juggle more quickly. Let's go ahead and go on to step 3. So we're going to add another ball, and I'll use the 2 balls that are the same color. Yeah, I think that'll make it easier visually. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to wait. So I'm going to do the same kind of throw that I just did, right? But I'm going to wait until the ball is at the peak of the throw, and then I'm going to throw the other ball. So I'm doing the same thing I just did. I'm just going to do it in sequence. So what that looks like is throw, throw, catch. Throw, throw, catch. So again, rhythm is important to get that rhythm as even as possible. Throw, throw, catch. And you'll find you have one dominant hand probably that you're more likely to want to do the first throw with, and that's fine. You can continue doing it that way where you're always going with your strong hand, starting with your strong hand, or you can alternate and do the first throw. Like for me, my strong hand is my left hand, right? My left hand. So that's my strong hand. So I would tend to throw with that hand first, but it's also beneficial to throw with your offhand first as well. So either way, you may find you just want to stick with the easiest way possible. So one more time, throw, throw, catch. Throw, throw, catch. I'm waiting, and I'm not chasing after the balls to try to catch them. So I'm not going up like that to try to catch the balls, because you won't be able to juggle and maintain that rhythm. So just let's watch that if you can. Just watch that. Same principles, throwing to 2 points, scooping to do the throw, not chasing the catches. And again, don't be tempted to do more than this. This might seem like nothing, but it'll take you a while to get the feeling of getting that rhythm. Right, so you're really trying to keep the height of both balls the same, and you're trying to keep a very even rhythm to your juggling. If you look at that in profile, same kind of thing. I don't want to throw out. I want to really keep the balls in the same plane. And I don't want to rush. And again, your easiest height, it may not feel like it now, but the easiest height is going to be right about head level or a little bit higher. That's a good balance of a trade-off between accuracy of throws and then the speed that you have to work with. So that's step 3. So pause the video, stop the video, take your time, really try to get that rhythm. Throw, throw, catch. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And all right, good. Going on to step 4. And for this, I want you to just get the feeling of having 2 balls in one hand. And the easiest way to hold them, if the balls are about the size of this, tennis ball, lacrosse ball, small orange, large clementine, is to hold one ball with the pinky finger and the ring finger, and then to hold the other ball independently with your index finger and your middle finger. And the balls will be touching, but you've got separate control over both balls. And then you're just holding this ball normally. And so this next step isn't really an addition of anything, except you're holding on to a ball in one hand. So we're going back and still doing that throw, throw, catch, but it's going to be a little tougher because you've got a ball in one hand. So you have to train your body how to throw one ball while holding on to the other, and then you also have to learn how to catch a ball while you're still holding one ball. So this next step, what you're doing is exactly the same. It's just that holding that extra ball. So throw, throw, catch. What am I doing with this ball? Nothing. I'm just holding on to it. But easier said than done. Throw, throw, catch. So in this, I'm always throwing with my dominant hand. I've got the 2 balls in my dominant hand, and I'm always initiating the throw with that dominant hand. Throw, throw, catch. And if you notice the way I'm catching the ball, I'm holding this ball with either the little finger or the little finger and the ring finger. And then when I catch, right, I'm catching just a little bit harder because I only have 3 fingers to catch with instead of all 5. So look again at that rhythm. And I would suggest doing this a considerable amount of time till you really get the feeling of throwing with a ball in your hand and catching with a ball in your hand as well. And again, if you want to, and it's quite a bit harder, if you switch hands, you may want to try this with the other hand as well, where you're holding on. I mean, even though it's the same thing, but because it's your non-dominant hand, it's going to feel a lot harder. Because you're always going to start juggling with 2 in one hand, and you're always going to finish catching that third ball. So if I'm juggling continuously, right, I've got that last catch to do. So this sort of isolates that difficulty. Throw, throw, catch. All right, so that's step 3. And go ahead and do that, and again, until you feel about an 80% proficiency with that step before you go on to the next step. And the next step is where we really start juggling. All right, so going on to step 4, you're going to release the ball that you were holding. And I think that's also one reason why you don't want to necessarily get what you would feel like, say, 100% proficiency, because you don't want to get used to just holding on to that ball. You want to get good enough at throwing and catching while you're still holding a ball that you can do it pretty well, but you don't want your muscle memory to just hold on to that ball forever. So what we're doing, we're starting the same. Throw, throw, catch, except I'm going to actually throw that third ball. So I'm going to throw that silver ball. So it's not just red, red. I'm going to throw the third ball. And again, I'm waiting till the ball is at the peak, and I'm not going to chase the ball to try to catch it. So what that looks like is throw, 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 catch. Notice you do have to catch in your non-dominant hand if you're just doing 3 throws. You can practice this with the 2 balls in your non-dominant hand as well. Then your dominant hand does the catch. It will take you longer to master this step if you alternate to your non-dominant hand, but it will make the next step easier. So that's your call. So it's throw, 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 catch. Throw, 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 catch. And let me just do it a few times while I'm not talking, and so where you can just kind of feel the rhythm. And the rhythm is important, and just you have a chance to just kind of watch it. You can notice I'm not looking down at my hand. I'm keeping my focus up. I'm not throwing the ball, the next ball, until the preceding throw reaches the peak. So that is one of the 2 or 3 most common mistakes when juggling, is that the pace of the juggling starts getting faster and faster. The pace of your throws starts getting faster until you can no longer keep pace with it. So that would look something like this, right? Where right, boom, then I've lost it, yeah? So then I've got to pick up all the balls. So we're not rushing the throws. We're just going to throw. We're waiting to throw till the ball hits the peak. And so you can think that, or you can just feel rhythm. And if you've done that preceding step and gotten pretty proficient with that preceding step, this shouldn't be super hard. This should take you about the same amount of time. Try to break this into 5 steps that take about the same amount of time each to get reasonably proficient with it. If you look at this in profile, so again, one of the most common mistakes when you actually start juggling with 3 balls is to start throwing the balls out in front of you. And that's why I said initially maybe doing this in front of a couch or even better in front of a bed will help you to not have to pick up all the balls every time you make a mistake. Well, you have to pick them up, but just pick them up from the bed rather than having to go all the way down. So if you look at what that common mistake looks like, or maybe I'm juggling along okay, but then I start throwing the balls out in front of me, and that's not going to work. If that's a really significant problem for you, what you can do is just juggle in front of a wall so that you can't throw the balls out without hitting the wall, and that'll kind of train you, right, to throw more in a plane. Watching again, just that 3-ball throw. 3-ball. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very even rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, when you've got about an 80% proficiency with this, and again, not any hard and fast number, just what you feel like I'm about, I'm pretty good at this. I'm pretty good. I'm not great. I'm pretty good. Then you want to go on to the next step, step 5. And step 5 is really just adding another throw. So step 5 will take you from being able to do just that 3-ball throw, to just being able to continuously juggle. My suggestion would be to take it one additional throw at a time. And again, waiting until you get about an 80% proficiency, let's say with 3 throws or 4 throws, before you go on to trying 5 throws. And at a certain point, you'll just be able to kind of keep going. And what's that point? I don't know, maybe 7 throws, 8 throws, something like that, where you'll just start being able to keep going until something messes up. And the something that messes up is probably going to be you start catching the balls too high, which throws your rhythm off, or you start throwing the balls out in front of you, which makes it so that you can't, you're running forward to catch the balls if you have the room, and you can't do that. So just to going on to the next step, 4 throws. Again, I'm thinking rhythm. I'm thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, catch. And that takes you back to your dominant hand. So it's actually kind of easier in a way, maybe in some ways, a couple of ways. It's easier to juggle with 4 throws than 3 throws because you're going back to where you started. So this is my dominant hand. I'm able to throw with my dominant, and I'm able to catch with my dominant. So 3 to 4 is not as tough, right, as going on. So one more time, looking at 4. And when you can do that, I would say you can juggle, right? You may not be able to juggle continuously forever, but you can juggle. You're starting and you're finishing in the same place. And so congratulations. If you've gotten to that stage, congratulations. And I just wanted to finish, just watch, if you just watch me juggling continuously, and it might help you with any problems that you're having. So the main things I'm thinking about, again, throwing to the 2 points, waiting to do the next throw until the previous throw is roughly at the peak or just past the peak. And rhythm, for me, rhythm is so important. So if you just take a look at that, and maybe I'll turn sideways so you can see profile as well. So I'm going at what for me is the most comfortable, maybe not most comfortable, but the easiest height, And again, if you just follow one ball, you can see the path of that ball. You can see what my hands are doing. I could have a wider spread, but a spread this wide is harder. If I have a narrower spread, it's also more difficult because the balls are more likely to collide. So this is going to be just a nice, comfortable spread. If I go to profile, and you can see me in profile, again, I'm roughly doing this in one plane. I'm not allowing the balls to go out, because as soon as you do that, you're probably going to drop a ball, or all 3. So I hope that helps you if you're interested in juggling. I hope that breaking it down into those 5 steps and feeling like you need to achieve reasonable proficiency with the first step before you go on to the next step, hopefully that makes it not so frustrating. The frustrations come in kind of small chunks. So just really quickly to review those 5 steps. Step 1, Step 2. Step 3. Step 4. Sorry, step 4, just 2 balls. And 3 throws. And then just adding throws. I think I might have messed up my numbers there with my steps. I think I skipped a step. But anyway, those 5 steps, and hopefully if you get frustrated at one step, just go back a step. Right? Just go back a step, go back to something that you had reasonable proficiency with, and that'll help you to go on to the next step. So I know this is a fairly long video, but being able to talk about some common problems hopefully will help you to avoid any frustrations. And if you're actually interested in juggling, I think in maybe, I don't know, if you have balls that are fairly easy to throw and catch, that's going to make a big difference. But maybe 2 hours before you're able to do something like, that. You're thinking maybe roughly that time frame. So anyway, good luck with you and for what you're doing. If you like this video, like it. If you want to make a comment, maybe something that I could address, or if you're having problems, frustrations, I can address those in the comments. And have a good day and have a good time learning to juggle. Take care. If you want to leave me a tip, that's fine too. I'll leave a link to my tip jar, and all the best to you.